forever. I press go live.
Oh, we're going live?
We are live, baby.
Hello and welcome to the Gooners podcast. Michael, B. Hello.
The three of us together. I intentionally made it so you can't see me because I'm feeling very dark and gloomy, and except my surroundings are very light and tropical. So I'm going silhouette today.
And I went with my tropical themed Cancun hat because there's 18 inches of snow outside. And I figured, what better way?
So Andy's got 18 inches. B, how many inches do you have?
Right now, no inches.
Oh,
You're in Chicago for
we're going to get the back end of that whole high pressure system that you guys are experiencing right now. So
he's getting the back end of Andy's inches. So I'm coming to you from Miami, Florida, which is our typical Thanksgiving tradition, which is the nice part about it. Andy, I forgot, we've been doing this 4 years. Do you celebrate Thanksgiving? I mean, is this the time of year where you decide to be American, or what?
You know what's funny is my wife sent my mom and I to the store yesterday to get the Thanksgiving Day stuff, and we literally sit there like, how many packets of gravy do we get? Like, how many stuffings do we buy?
So you have Thanksgiving, you just as English, you don't understand how to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Isn't there like a manual or something? Like
there seriously should be. Like, I asked this old lady, I said, you look like you're accustomed to gravy making. She started laughing.
Oh, no.
I said, what do I do here?
You look like you're accustomed to kind of thick, slightly sticky fluids.
Well, I didn't say that.
I think that's basic. You did not say that.
That's very true. I did.
It's heavily implied.
Yeah. Let's just say I'm not allowed back into that grocery store anytime soon.
Yes, that's exactly right. To those who have just showed up in the chat, Archie Thunder Road has been here for a while. I'm a silhouette today because it pretty much just fits my mood, and you don't want to see how short my hair is. It's like uniformly buzz cut right now. So really, it's just the background that's causing it, and I think I'm doing you all a favor. Those of you who are not watching on YouTube but listening online are like, what the hell are they all talking about? You'll just have to come on YouTube and find out. So this pod is entitled The 7 Stages of Grief. And while I don't in any way intend on making light of the actual 7 stages of grief, God knows we've had grief in our lives. We've had true issues in our lives. I think, there is kind of an arsenal component to this. I'm thinking we're somewhere kind of vacillating between anger and depression. The shock has long since left. The denial, I think I came out of about a month or so ago. We'll turn it around. When the locker room, the dressing room, whatever you want to call it, got lost, I think we went directly into anger. Any of you guys find any bargaining going on in this, or B, where are you on this on this situation?
I feel like being a Gooner in general right now is just like a self-bargaining experience, because everybody's just so fed up with what we're getting on the pitch and just like how ridiculous everything seems to have become, and trying to justify everything and anything seems to be the general Gooner condition now. Seeking
in vain for a way out. That is that's kind of apropos. Final realization of the inevitable, though. You certainly seem there, Andy.
Yeah.
You've just started lobbing grenades all over the place at this point.
At the end of the day, the results aren't changing, and it's not like, it's not like we're doing anything to like overcome these shitty results. So we play a team that's conceded 9 a few weeks ago to one of our league rivals, and we start with 3 at the back. I don't know if it's like that whole identity crisis we're going through, and Unai and his team have said, okay, well, this is the formation we're going to go out with, 3-5-2 for the rest of the season, no matter the opponent. But you also have to question, like, hey, what is happening?
Is that the new identity?
Yeah, it's like,
how many new identities can you try really before? Emery's got one strategy at this point, and his strategy is to avoid a conversation with anyone who can sack him. I mean, he's installed double caller ID on his phone. He's got Find My Friends with all the club executives on there, so he can kind of zig where they zag. He moved. Like, and by that I mean he moved like where he lives and didn't tell anyone. He canceled his emails. His cat fell on the phone app that he uses to set the starting formation, and I think that's how we end up with this shit. I mean,
it's the only way to make sense of it.
I'm sticking to that. It's the only rational explanation because, I mean, and whether you know about tactics or not, whether you're like super plugged in or not, everyone, and I mean everyone at the pub, casual, diehard, was like, why are we setting up like this? Why, this just seems awfully defensive against a club that's supposed to suck.
Mm-hmm. I mean, against clubs that suck, we suck. I mean, look.
Southampton said the same thing. Maybe we should start 3 at the back because we're playing a club that sucks.
Well, we dropped points with Southampton, bottom in the league. Watford, bottom of the league. It's just something is going on, and I don't know why the guy still has a job because we're slipping further and further off the pace, and we're about to head into a really busy time. And, when you're not playing good football and you have a run of games, injuries are going to start happening, resting players is going to start to happen, and we can't afford this right now. And for stability-wise, we had a 2-week period where we could have fucking cleared house and prepared for it during that international break. And, Mike, I sent that text out to our little group of friends with
they're all 2 feet tall. It's a little group of friends.
Tottenham last season made the Champions League final with no new players, and they fire their manager after a rough start, but comparative to ours, it's not been that bad, So
technically it has, but
they're
you don't get the sense you didn't get the sense that he had lost a dressing room.
No, absolutely. And the behind the scenes were more or less, if you believe Sky Sports, is that he and Levy weren't seeing eye to eye on certain issues, but ultimately he's a great manager. So there's something weird about this whole thing, and I don't know. We were the second best all match to a team fighting for their lives, and they outshot us. They slept with our wives. They were first every ball. I don't even know what the fuck to say anymore about this because it's the same conversation week in and week out. And welcome back, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I think the thing that's so frustrating about this too is even though we did line up with 3 at the back, from like a tactical perspective, it was a very conservative 3 at the back that somehow included most of the people in the lineup kind of playing the positions that we wanted them to see. So it's like so close to feeling like this is what everybody wants. But at the same time, it makes no sense. You're playing a team that literally lost 9-0 2 weeks ago. And then you had those 2 weeks to prepare. And I can't help but think, kind of looking back at our last international break, like that's kind of when we all started getting fed up with Unai, because after the last international break, we played Sheffield and they hadn't won after an international break in like 6 straight games or something ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're, I don't know, I feel like it's almost difficult to have constructive discussion about it at this point, because we've run through everything. Like at this point, it really does feel like there has to be something going on that's keeping them in the job that we're just all unaware of, because it really is insane for him to still have. Is
there any truth to the whole, if he goes past Friday, there's some triggered amount of money that we don't have to pay him type of thing? I mean, I'm hearing that. I don't know how reliable that source is.
I feel like there's some bargaining right there.
There's so many rumors.
I'm not saying I believe it or I want to believe it, but
yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell what's media clickbait, but the rumor mill is just running all over, and we'll get into that a little bit. But why would Friday be any different than any other day? Like, what on the calendar, if we looked at it, would trigger that? Would it be a year and a half in the role? Like, I don't know.
Just Thanksgiving, pretty much.
It's Black Friday. Is that why we're going to get a discount?
It's like Black Monday in the NFL, except for Black Friday.
Yeah,
maybe we'll finally get that.
That's why I'm silhouetted today. It's because of Black Friday. Let's leave race out of this, okay, please. Also, I mean, you mentioned this just a few minutes ago. I mean, if they had just slept with the players' wives and the coaches' wives, that'd be one thing. But I mean, it was so. I mean, you just got to really fuck with us and sleep with all the supporters' wives. It's not That's how bad we lost them. I got home from the pub. My mother-in-law's about 10 feet from me right now. I got home from the pub after watching that game, and I asked my wife to meet me in the kitchen. It took her 20 minutes to walk a few meters because she was so sore from Southampton.
She just got gangbanged by the Southampton team.
Oh my
I mean, that's pretty much what happened.
But here's the deal. Like, we talked about it when Kev was on the pod. We were just second to everything 2 weeks ago, and we were second to everything again. And with a team that is ultimately fighting for fourth place and wanting that internet or European football, you would think the mindset of these players would be greater. And that wasn't the case. And so
there's one reason why.
It goes back to the question is, are these players playing for the manager? And I don't think they are. I think that they have given up. And I don't understand why the football team is suffering the way it is, because ultimately you think that Freddie would be relaying back to what I assume is his close friend, Edu, saying, hey, we're not doing on the training pitch what we're doing in the matches or vice versa. And ultimately you have to look at the grander picture. Now, in the Arsenal away days, there's a couple students in there, Mike, who were saying that Emery was set to talk at their school next week. And it sounds as though that got canceled, and they're saying it got canceled because of negative feedback. But
that's amazing.
Is it getting canceled because, dude? Yeah. Matt Judge sent out a text a few hours ago, so it just reeks and reeks of. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I don't really know the answers, but they
guys with Arsenal, when we were playing shitty or on a run, bad patch. We weren't walking out of games being the second best team. We were walking out of the games being tactically beaten, right? It wasn't an effort-based thing. It wasn't a more shots on target or whatever statistical. We were beaten tactically. We still played really good football. We still played the Arsene Wenger way of tiki-taka style football.
I don't know. That might be a little revisionist history there in my mind. I think we were just mentally exhausted and didn't really I think, and by we I mean the players. I'm a player. I'm a player. I just think they were just done. Not from a respect standpoint. That's the difference that we have here is that the players, I think, are actively just saying we're not buying what this guy's selling, and it's not because after 22 years it's just run its course. It's because the guy doesn't have it, and they're just not inspired, and frankly may subconsciously, I never like to think it's conscious, although when you look at what happened with Chelsea and Jose Mourinho's last year, that was ultra conscious. They're just not playing for him, and with Arsene, I think they just kind of didn't really know how to play for him, and they were being dealt a losing card. With Emery, they're certainly not getting any kind of positive direction. But I also think that their will to win is temporarily gone. B, you look like you're about to explode.
Yeah. So I just feel like
that he's got something to say.
So I have to ask, like, do you feel like the players have down tools at this point? Because it's so strange to see, because everybody who's playing at this level and like the amount of talent that's actually on the pitch for us, you can see this almost like internal war that people go through where like the competitive side of them pushes them to do something, and it's almost like there's like the go and then a hesitation. Like there literally feels like there's something physical holding them back from playing to their fullest abilities. And I mean, that was also just like something that you could see so clearly after Lacazette scored the equalizer. There's this general just like sadness or like realization, like I just did something that could potentially keep this person that is ruining everything in the job for longer. And I don't know, after this match, like this is the most frustrated I think I've felt in recent memory. And I know I've probably said that a couple times, which is telling in and of itself, but it really feels like we're now trying to figure out why, just like constantly everybody's just asking the same question over and over, because it does. I feel like it's time to almost start turning and looking at Raul and start turning and looking at, I don't know if Edu has any real decision-making power, but it seems like Raul is the one that's going to have to be the catalyst to pushing him out, and like the Cronkies, as we've kind of run through a million times, are delegatory owners. and they're not going to be the ones that step in and say his time is done.
At this point, Andy, I know you have strong opinions on who's driving this show at this point and who needs to make this decision.
It needs to be the owner. Ultimately, like that, if your business is failing, you turn to the CEO and you make the CEO make a change. If you're not that person, you turn to the president. And in this case, as B said, it's Raul and Unai. And we keep hearing all of these, Don Raul did this in the summer. Where the fuck is he now? Because apparently, if you're listening to the media bullshit again, he's the reason that Emery is still in the job. What is he seeing that we're not?
That's what's so confusing, too, because he really does come from the club with arguably the most ingrained culture of winning and like this constant pressure to succeed, and not only succeed, but win big trophies.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like what we thought we were getting, and that's what we thought really kind of started to put its roots in, this summer when we were excited about literally everything. And to see this happening where there's just like this slow creeping erosion of the club that we love, we're literally like watching it in real time, and there's nothing for us to do other than feel frustrated about it. So
do we have to feel, though, that, here's some bargaining. We're talking about the 7 stages. As far as Raul's concerned, I'm not ready personally to throw away my adulation of Raul Sanelli just yet.
I'm
absolutely. He's probably the reason Emery's still in the job. And
why though? Like
well,
what? Like other than a couple of reports that are from not necessarily the most credible sources, from what I've seen at least, unless there's something recently that came out.
Hey, Indicali is right in there with the best of them.
He's been real active recently.
I think he has a lot to do with it, Ro, but I just still kind of think that the things he brings to the club compared to our previous, as far as transfer policy is concerned, as far as and it's kind of hypocritical in this own point to say this. I think he's a little bit more cutthroat. It's just weird that he's not being with Emery.
Here's, we had this debate a couple of weeks ago, but the only reason that I can see them holding off the firing is because the right person isn't available at this moment in time. However, would Freddie can't do any worse than this, right? We literally haven't won a league game in like 30 days.
No,
so
he truly cannot do worse than this.
Yeah, exactly. Like at this moment,
he might not be the person to get us back up to fourth.
Right, but as a short-term contingency plan, and if you think about, the long-term of Arsenal Football Club, it appears that Freddie is in that for the long term because the board are the ones that made him the assistant manager. So,
but that seems to be the issue.
Yeah,
that kind of like begs the question of whether we'd fall into that kind of Solskjaer effect, where we
let dude here. I would have been in every Manchester United supporter's same shoes if Freddie comes in and wins 20 games on the trot or whatever Solskjaer did, because I think it was like 12 or 13. Then you would all of a sudden say, well, hold on a second. This is kind of cool, right? But again, United do things differently because of money. And that's but specifically, it bothers me because we don't have a contingency plan. Someone put in the group chat that Spurs in the summer kind of started getting this feeling between Levy and Pochettino having these outs. They probably had something ready to go. It's weird to me, Mike, that we don't have someone in the background who's saying to these guys, you know what? Let's pull the plug on Emery. Let's let Freddie take over. Because it's not like we're winning 2 games, losing 2, or playing really well and then losing 2, and you're like, okay, I see signs of it getting better. I can't remember the last time Arsenal put in a performance where you walk away going, oh, goddamn, like that was awesome. Like, when was that time?
Victoria, the first one?
Yeah, like how long was that? October?
Yeah, but in a game that you would profess to say we were starting our best 11. It hasn't happened this year. Newcastle was a little underwhelming. Burnley was the last time I felt good about a win. And just to remind you about how long ago that was, it was I think the day that you and I met, B. That's the
Oh my
last
God,
time.
that's so crazy.
That's the last time I felt good. I mean, even the other wins, Aston Villa, just a ridiculous second half surge that came out of nowhere with subs that probably should have been on the pitch in the first place. The Bournemouth win was undeserved, and it's been a lost season.
I feel well. That's like where we are now. Like, have we reached that inflection point where
no way we beat Frankfurt on Thursday is how I'm feeling right now.
I don't think anybody's going to show up to the stadium. I mean, the club has taken pretty drastic.
Well, so here's the question to you guys, because someone did put this in the group, and it's a good point. Like, what if only 15,000 fans show up? And Gixxer made a really good argument. I don't know if you saw this, Mike, but he said it's Europa League. No one's going to show up for that anyway.
No, it has to. If that's going to be, I'm torn on the whole boycotting thing. But if it's going to make a difference, it's not going to be a Thursday night game.
No, absolutely,
it's going to be a Premier League home game,
yeah.
Or even more effectively, as I've seen suggested. And again, I'm not endorsing this or rubbishing it, but an away game where literally everybody bands together and doesn't show up for some period of the game or for all of it, and it's a statement. I don't know.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Way of getting information to the owners that they're going to, the "we care to you" thing doesn't seem to have too much impact this time.
Can I ask you two guys a question?
Kind of what this podcast is about, but yeah.
What do Burnley, Sheffield United, and Wolves have in common?
They have more wins in the last 10 games than we do.
They're above us in the table.
Above us in the table.
So if you are the owner,
Nottingham Forest would be above us.
That's actually crazy, yeah.
But it's like, all right, so granted, there's a lot of games to go, and if you look at this table, United are still below us, Tottenham are still below us, albeit by 1 point. Leicester is just absolutely flying, but an injury or two away. But they're still 11 points. They've won their last 5 matches, and it's just like, if you look at where we are right now, it's a pivotal turning point because we have a flat track run of games that should be easy on paper. But Southampton are easy on paper. Sheffield United are easy on paper. And
the last 6 games of last season were easy on paper.
Exactly. So we do not have the manager right now to take us through that flat track and essentially guarantee points. And there's no guarantee that Freddie could do that either. There's no guarantee Allegri could, Eddie Howe could, whoever. However, we do know that those individuals could do better than what's currently on offer. So you got to make a decision, Arsenal. And I sent to you, Mike, because we have the opportunity to reach out to these people. It's almost it's put up or shut up. And as you're right, the most current We Care to You campaign isn't making any waves. But I don't think the ownership gives a shit. I don't think the leadership gives a shit.
And the problem with that is that the We Care to You campaign is, and always has been about a lot more than just how we were on the pitch. Mm-hmm. And I think, unfortunately, if I can be a tad critical, it probably shouldn't have gone away so much in the early part of the season when we were living off of our perceived excellent transfer window, which I still think was a good transfer window. It's just, players have to be playing for their gaffer. But
or just like playing in their positions generally.
That sort of thing.
Or just playing, period.
Yeah. So, I mean, and a lot of the other things, the safe standing, it's been discussed, but not necessarily addressed. The Super League has just kind of fallen off of everyone's. So, I mean, but when it comes to is the ownership plugged in and ready to do what has to be done on a moment's notice to get this team back to where they need to be? That's what seems to be missing at this point. And I think it's fair to ask the questions. And, hey, we were told in August, I don't think there's I don't think we saw you. I don't think that there's any doubt. I don't think there's any problem with me saying this on the podcast, but we were told in August that, someone from well up there inside Arsenal would probably join us by October as part of the, decision to reach out to supporters and be a little bit more open through non-traditional channels. And we were told in October that, let's just focus on the season and see how things could turn out. And so it's a little disillusioning that, they want to do it from a position of strength. They don't want to do it from a position of weakness. But I think the times that we're in now are when it has to happen. And that's when they need to be communicating and saying, you know what, they don't owe us an explanation of here's why we're firing him or not firing him.
No.
But I'd like
You
to
don't.
think that
You don't
they're
feel like
kind
they
of
do though. You don't feel like
owe
they're
us an explanation of their thought process, because again, sometimes you don't show your cards. That could impact negotiations with an incoming coach. I wouldn't go so far to say that you have to answer to why you're not doing that. I just want to know that it's in the wheelhouse of discussion, that
that's what I'm saying.
Well aware that this is not good enough. Those sort of things.
I think the biggest thing that came out of the We Care to You little campaign this summer was that it seemed like there was that bridge being formed, and like communication and transparency are kind of like the pillars of modern sports from an ownership perspective. Like the best owners are the ones that are constantly communicating with their fan bases. And I think the biggest thing that's come out of this is that we kind of felt like there was this turning tide, like they started to get it. Josh spoke to a lot of people actually, and came out, gave a couple of interviews, and it seemed like he was more locked in. And it seemed like Raul and Vinay really kind of started pushing things.
We talked to 5 people, and 2 of them are in this room. So,
I mean, in terms of like making himself accessible. Oh, 1 second.
Yeah, it was all turning around, and now it's gone to the point where our animals are upset, our wives are upset, and I don't know what's going to happen next. Celebrate. I've seen a lot of people in the chat, and we're going to highlight some of these comments and questions in the chat, because we don't mean to let them go by without answering them, unless they're about why I look so good today compared to normal. The celebration at the pub when we scored, like B said, like it was just like meh. Like I know the celebration on the pitch was muted. A bunch of Yanks who supposedly know fuck all about football and are always happy to see goals. We just literally were unmoved by the fact that we salvaged not losing to Southampton for the first time in 25 games at home, and that's apathy, and that's the worst thing of all is apathy.
Well, Mike, the problem is you're right. It's like Lacazette plays the first time in 90 minutes. The first ever time under Emery. I'd like you to fact check that. But if he's not on the pitch, we lose. If Southampton were a more clinical team in front of goal, we lose. And we're not stupid. The supporters see that. And people are saying Kroenke's over in London. I don't think he is. I really don't think he is, and I don't think it matters if he is. I don't know, man. It's a really, really, really shitty time to be an Arsenal supporter, because nothing is getting better. We've said it for weeks now. If we're losing the games because the system isn't working, but we're playing well, that's one thing. But the system is broken, and we're just getting outpaced, outshot, outbeaten to everything by shitty teams. It's okay to lose to a Liverpool or Man City, but to get hidings from all of these fucking relegation battle teams is just embarrassing.
Yeah, and I'm mad, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
So,
I think the thing that we ever
so bad they can see me here.
You just skipped out.
Sorry, you broke up for me.
All right, go ahead.
I think the thing that we haven't really talked about very much either is like this whole post international break 4-game stretch that was supposed to be this like testing period, where we have these 4 games that are supposed to be relatively easy. We've already drawn at home to arguably the worst team in the Premier League, and now we have Norwich, Brighton, West Ham in the next 3. And those games have now kind of become critical. I mean, we talked about this being like a little bit of an inflection point or a turning point for the rest of our season. And after that, our schedule just gets absolutely brutal. Like it turns into just basically like 8-game run that could be really bad for us. After the West Ham away game, we play City, Everton, Bournemouth, Chelsea, United, Palace, Sheffield, Chelsea. And if we have no change by that, like we're now at a point where I literally like don't even know. Like we go into games and I expect to drop points, and kind of expect a win seems out of the question almost.
We are closer ultimately to the relegation zone than we are to Champions League.
It's like, is it still 10 point difference?
I think it's 10 and 8. So it's like arguably almost the same. So it's like you look at that run and you go, Norwich, okay, we should get 3 points there. I look at it now and I go, Pucky's going to score a hat trick agaagainst us, whatever his name is, because dude's going to fucking.
Oh, could you imagine if Pookie turned it back up? That would
dude's going to just ridiculously run circles around our back three.
The thing that's actually scary too, from a tactical perspective, is like if they've kind of taken a step back from that open, more fluid attacking football and like system that saw them beat City, you know. But like, why wouldn't they turn that back on when they're playing us? Because it's I don't even like. It's so frustrating because the play
right now, like teams got to be licking their lips and saying, "I hope we can play them before they get straightened out."
Literally make a change. And the thing that like it's crazy because it does really feel like we have so much talent, and so like personnel wise, the players that we have on the pitch are the best that we've had in years.
I don't dispute that, and people start saying, we made the wrong decision with Pepe. Look at the difference between like Pulisic and like how Pulisic was handled and how Pepe's been handled. You know, like teams should be second or third in the league right now, talent wise.
100%.
And it's all about the setup and the coaching and all that. So I fully expect a new coach bump. I would rather have it happen now than I'd rather have it happen in time for my visit next month. So that I don't have to just take care of crying teenage children who are so disappointed and gutted, and so that I don't have to watch what Andy described earlier in the podcast that the other team was doing to us, because that's not what I want to be dealing with.
They're betting on lives.
I do have we kind of touched on this earlier a little bit, but like, do you think like the general reason behind the lack of switch is like, our only option realistically, if we're going externally, is Allegri, which is a whole nother. We should have probably like a coaching search podcast in and of itself. But if we do end up looking to Freddie, like that's really the best option. And it sounds like from the reports from the more reliable sources that like a kind of tandem of Freddie and Steve Bold would be the interim, which is kind of scary, but the interim decision. But we kind of really limit ourselves moving forward there, because if Freddie does well, but not well enough, or somebody becomes available, like that target, whoever it is that we seem to be focused on for the upcoming summer, if Freddie does well, like we know that he has aspirations to be a manager somewhere, and then we're kind of we're like almost ultimatuming his inclusion. His inclusion or future, because we're either saying like you succeed to the extent that you're going to be manager moving forward, point blank period, or
but do we have time to plan for 2 years from now anymore? The time to plan for 2 years ahead was 2 years ago.
But here's the thing: 2 years from now, 1 year from now, 6 months from now, we lose the likes of Locke. We are not going to be able to afford their salaries on this. And that's where I don't understand. Like we heard from Josh specifically, we're playing Europa League football on a Champions League budget. And if you're the manager of Arsenal Football Club, or even the owner, then that should be enough for you to say, we've got to make a move. And
but apparently they've been convinced that the strategy is still working. And I just don't see how you can – I don't see how Josh doesn't see this. I have to think that he does, and that there's kind of this internal struggle between Josh and Raul and others as to, how to fix it and when to fix it. Because, how can Josh Kroenke, from what we know about Josh Kroenke, I'm sorry, Russ and everyone else who thinks like you, they are not – I'm not going to argue about whether he's a good owner or not. But he's not unplugged to this. He's not unaware that this club is falling apart. He can't be.
Yeah.
So why doesn't he just overrule whoever is telling him to to keep things going this way and just make a decision? And Joel, if you want to put the question back up in the chat, I had it somewhere in my email, but we did also get a question from your city mate B, from Christian in Chicago, 3112 Gunner, and this kind of goes to some of the coaching options, and I know pretty much how you feel on this, Andy. But if you're Raul and you fire Emery now, and have only the following options, and he gives 6 of them, which one do you prefer? Arteta on a 3-year deal starting now, and the 3 or 4 year deal issue, I think, just has to go with the fact that if you do have them come on in the middle of the season and it doesn't work out, you're really locked into having to pay him off big time if you scrap that at the end of the year. Arteta on a 3-year deal, Poch on a 4-year deal, Vieira on a 3-year deal, Rafa Benitez on a 4-year deal, Nuno Espirito, Maria Conchita Alonso Santo, or whatever the hell his name is, on a 4-year, or Freddie as caretaker with no certainty as to who would take over in the summer. What would you want to see happen right now? B.
Personally, I would love. I mean, I would like. I don't know. There's so many options there, but I think Freddie taking over makes the most sense because we know that he has a positive relationship with the youngsters. We know that we kind of want to see a little bit more from some of them in terms of actually being included in the side. And I think from just like a base communication perspective, I think that's kind of become the biggest issue on the pitch. Like you can literally see Unai gesticulating like a madman on the sideline and people just being like, we have no idea what's going on. And it seems like from just like an actual on pitch performance perspective, like people seem confused in their roles and then kind of like apathetic because of it. So I think Freddie gives us the most flexibility, but that idea puts us in kind of a more difficult position. But I do think that there are some managers that would fit what we want in terms of being like a younger, more progressive, kind of innovative tactician, and like more of like a
could one of those be Ten
Arsenal
Hag?
way-esque. Yep, Ten Hag is one of them. I think
Could one of those be Free Day, who apparently is a candidate? Free Day.
Where does that come from?
I
think Ten Hag and Nagelsmann is an interesting one that's been floated around. Like there's people. I don't like. It seems like we're trying to kind of focus more on youth, you know. And it's even. I mean, it's early, obviously, transfer rumor wise, but with the kind of more credible sources that have been talking about potential signing / who we're looking into, they all seem to be like young, really exciting, up and coming players. So if we're going to go younger, we're going to go with a kind of more youth perspective moving forward and have the kind of like bigger names sprinkled in. I think it makes a lot of sense to be thinking about a younger manager and somebody who can connect with them on a more legitimate level.
So what's your question?
Freddie
right,
into somebody else during the summer.
Andy, how much money would you pay me if I could guarantee you we could hire Pochettino tomorrow?
I'd pay you as much money as you would need, because he is a manager that has done that we would only dream about. You know, everyone was so upset when he found certain players, and yet we come in and we buy Pepe, and then he's mismanaged, as we've said before. Pochettino won't do that. All those other managers that you mentioned have done fuck all in the scheme of managing football. Pochettino has absolutely, now granted, trophy-wise, there's nothing there, but say what you want about Tottenham, they have outplayed us football-wise since he joined them. Ever since he's joined them, they have been ultimately a better football team than us. Now, maybe not every year they finished above us in the league, but look what they've accomplished. Look what they have done with this manager. He is ready to take a team and ready to win. And so I would take him in a heartbeat. Here's the thing. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Manchester United all want this manager. They're not even going to fucking look at those other managers that were listed before. And now I agree with B. A young manager would be great with a young team that doesn't help us win tomorrow. I want to fucking challenge tomorrow. Pochettino gets us to that point. Gary Neville made a point on Sky Sports this week saying if Pochettino were to take over Arsenal, he'd be in the same situation. I don't agree with that. I think we have a better team than Tottenham. We just haven't utilized or maximized that team. He would get the best.
Better team, better youth coming through.
Absolutely.
Better second choices in positions.
I mean, look what he's done with Harry Kane. Look what he did with those fullbacks. He got them playing really good football. They bought into his system.
Your point's not going over in Bulgaria, though, right now.
But I'm sorry if I'm not speaking Bulgarian.
I didn't say you didn't understand your point. I'm saying he doesn't agree with
Bulgarian. If Emery outplayed him last season, why did they finish above us? Why are they continuously in the Champions League football? Just because we beat them in one match where Lucas Torreira went off on a fucking firestorm? I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable to say that he wouldn't be a better manager.
That said, please give us a thumbs up in the chat, and thank you for tuning in and week out. We love you. So you're on Potch right away. I mean, you see, but your odds of it happening?
0.
Yeah.
Mike, Bayern Munich are looking at him. Real Madrid.
It depends on how burnt the bridges are between him and Daniel Levy, because there's one. I mean, I don't see Pochettino as a guy to just take a job as a fuck you, but like, god damn, that would be one.
It would be a great fuck you, but it's also like, think of the money involved with it. I mean, you're not. He's a young guy. You're not uprooting your family. You're living in the same home. I mean, it would just be instead of turning left on this to get to the Tottenham training ground, you're probably turning right. So it just seems like it makes sense, but it's not going to happen. So I agree with B that Freddie should become the interim caretaker manager until that next manager is available. I don't know that Allegri is the answer, but I want to win tomorrow. And I don't think hiring a young manager and saying, okay, here's the 2 to 3 year window, because that's what we were supposed to be doing now.
Yeah.
And as you said, the talent on this team is not a 2 to 3 year talent. We got to capitalize on our 31-year-old striker, Aubameyang, and our 29-year-old striker, Lacazette. Those guys aren't getting any younger. So we got to capitalize that right now.
No, and you've got to assume that those guys would be raring to play for probably anybody new that isn't Emery at this point, but or maybe Arsene Wenger, but certainly Freddie, I think can inspire these guys to play the football that they can play. And I just, how often do mid-season managerial changes work when you look at them from a year or two on? Especially in big clubs. And I'm not saying they never work. I'm truly asking that question. Like, do they really happen that frequently, or is it usually something where you kind of need a process for a new manager to come in, put his team in, have a transfer window? Like, I'm talking about something happening at the end of May, early June, not something happening in August or in January or November. So, there's been a lot of blowback on people who are talking about Freddie Ljungberg as being, as though we're talking about him as the next Arsene Wenger, to start a 20-year reign of beautiful football with Arsenal. I don't think that's what anyone's looking at Freddie to be. It's continuity. It's the fact that our young players look up to him and played for him already, and could at least get us maximize what we have left in this season, whether it's top 4 or not. Freddie's got no responsibility to get us to the top 4 at this point. It'd be great if he can, but he's just got to stop the bleeding. And
there's a certain group of players, Mike, that have Arsenal history and blood in their veins that you could hand over the reins to and say to them, "We just need you for 6 months, and he's going to do the best possible job he can do." And Freddie is on that very short list, and I don't think Arteta's on that list. What has he done? He sat and been Pep's number 2. Okay, great. I could sit next to Pep and be a fucking great assistant because he's not the only person doing the job. Pep's got a team.
I'm taking Arteta over you, but yeah.
Hey, Mike, let me ask you this question, okay? And it's a simple yes or no.
You've won championships with your girls' team.
Has Mikel Arteta taken a U13 team undefeated Okay? No, he hasn't.
I've seen some pictures of what you do with that team, so I don't know what your coaching style is.
Exactly. So all I'm saying is if you've got a world-class manager standing on the footsteps of Arsenal Football Club who lives in the neck of the woods, you should be going balls deep to try and get that individual.
I feel like that's such a moot point, though. Like you even said yourself, like what are the realistic odds of that?
It doesn't matter.
Zero. His agent actually came out basically yesterday and was like, he's interested in United and he's interested in Madrid.
Of course he did.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, unless there's a smoke screen.
As an ownership group, it would be a failure if you would not at least make the conversation.
Yeah,
if you not at least make the phone call.
And who do we ask whether he has or not? I mean, there's basically 4 journalists that you can trust on information like that. And unless their name is Amy Lawrence, James McNicholas, David Ornstein, or Joseph Martin Murphy, I'm not believing anything you say. So, those are the 4 that I go to for my serious non-clickbait type of stuff.
That was a pretty heavy athletic plug.
And listen, I'm at odds with Bulgarian Gunnar, but here's my last point. Because he makes up a good point. Like, look at Lampard. Everyone has to start somewhere. Fine.
Yeah, he managed, though. He was a manager.
He did manage, and he had that background. A very big difference. And ultimately,
how long? Less than a season at Derby?
It doesn't matter. You're still taking on, and they still went on a promotion tear. But at the end of the day, Mike, you have to look at Lampard. His echelon and tenure at Chelsea has no comparison with Arteta at Arsenal. Okay, it doesn't. So if you're going to bring back a manager,
he comes with more credibility.
Exactly. Then you're looking at the Patrick Vieiras of the world, who could walk in, and but what I mean is they have managerial experience, and they could.
But there's a difference between having. So I don't. This is what gets so frustrating about this discussion for me, because it's like
to be an MLS bang.
Well, it kind of like you.
That's fine with me. I'm not
like that. I mean, the difference between like New York FC and a team in like one of the top 5 leagues in Europe is pretty clearly evident. Like
it's very clear, but I'm talking about manager experience, sitting in that dressing room and owning the entire process. Arteta hasn't done that. Lampard did it.
True.
Lampard was a legend at Chelsea.
And early on, when you have a player who may be inclined to question his coach's decision or input or rules or whatever, there probably is a difference subconsciously. Like, why am I listening to this guy? What's he done? Versus, this guy was a legend at my club, and he's actually coached players.
But look at our fan base, too. We have a fan base that, after 3 losses, will lynch you. We won't do that to a club legend, right? So Chelsea, when they look at Lampard, ultimately they had the transfer window ban. He was the perfect person to come in because the supporters are not going to lynch Lampard.
I thought he was being set up to fail, but as usual.
Exactly. Now, if Arteta were hired tomorrow and proved me wrong, I'd be Bulgarian. I'll be the first one to shake your hand and say I was wrong. I think there are better options on the table as we speak.
I mean, we're competing with Everton for his signature, basically. So that kind of, I don't know. I feel like I am interested in the theoretical idea of Arteta, but I also feel like this decision that's going to be made is the one that's going to kind of put into place the vision for the future of the club. Like, this is a really, really big decision. And we saw what happens when, I don't even know how Arteta and Unai were like the final 2 that they decided on, but this is the kind of decision that really, especially after the "We Care Do You" thing, will tell us what KSE and what the Cronkies and what the kind of triumvirate up top, front office wise, are really seeing as our future. And I think because of that, like, this is not a decision you can make lightly. And you're not gonna, if we were to fire Unai today, you're not gonna lure one of the top class, like, younger, eventually in demand managers in the world to leave their team right now. Like, that's just not going to happen. So that's why Freddie.
So you're basically, and I don't think Pep is willing to let him Arteta go in the middle of the season either. So
but he did.
You really are kind of looking at Allegri.
He did say in his Champions League press conference that he would, if it were right. But I agree with you. But again, this is all a moot point because we still have a manager who's not getting the best out of this football club. And We know
literally,
that
yeah, like
Freddie would probably do it.
there would be a huge jump, 100%. And like the thing that like Freddie is basically our only option at this point. And I think the only reason that we wouldn't do that is that we see like we don't know what the triumvirate is thinking, and they're thinking like, oh, we see Freddie as a potential manager of the future, but like one step down the road, you know? And because of that, they want to keep him and not have him do well. And then
you can't have him be the caretaker manager, bring on another manager, and when that doesn't work out, bring Lundberg back.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
so like,
and that is,
and you're locking yourself in. So that's what I was talking about. Like this, like ultimate, you're putting yourself in a between a rock and a hard place and limiting your options moving forward. If you do see Freddie as being that guy, and I don't think it seems like if Freddie were to take over as caretaker, what incentive would he have not to accept a championship side offer during the summer? You know, so like. You're basically setting yourself up to either lose him or
can we loan him out to like Bristol City or some shit like that?
That'd be awesome.
By the way, I'm very angry at a certain a friend who will remain nameless and who will remain a friend, but someone ruined an entire night of sleep for me earlier this week.
Oh, no.
By intimating that he or she was very plugged in with some people on certain information superhighways that journalists were lining up to write their morning stories that Unai Emery was going to be sacked. When was it? Monday morning?
It was Monday going into Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah. All night that night, because Tuesday's today.
So it was Sunday going into Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a flight to catch on Monday, and all night I'm rolling around in bed, like thinking, okay, is it 9:00 UK time yet? I'm checking my phone. I'm trying to get back to sleep. I mean, my whole night of sleep was destroyed because I wanted to get the news right when it came out, and it never happened.
And that's why I don't see it happening. I really don't. And it's fucking damning.
What was it about this? I mean, it was a little ITK for me.
We were sold a lie in the summer, and we're living in the light. Now, one lie and one big jump that we do know of, Cole Bassett got the opportunity to head over to London.
And who is Cole Bassett for those that don't know?
So Cole is a 18-year-old midfielder from Colorado here. He's more of a defensive midfielder, central midfielder for the Colorado Rapids. I think he's featuring for the under-21s U.S. team.
Did he train at the number 10 position? It's DM. That's surely where we're going to use it.
Yeah, he texted me and just said, "I keep playing striker. I don't understand why." All I know, Mike, is that he's back. He had a great time. We discussed some other things that I'm not going to share about contract stuff, but we can and we will be getting him on the pod very soon. We might just have to do a non-live show. The three of us sit down with him. B, are you back in Colorado over the holidays? God damn you.
Have you reserved I love how he just went the nonverbal because of the dog barking. And it was pointed out early in the podcast by somebody how it was adorable that you just tried to completely mute your microphone by going like this, which you just did again.
But there is a mute button.
There's like a little switch on the microphone.
Oh, it wasn't just like
no.
like me going like this.
Like,
I don't want anyone to hear what's going on.
But no, it's pretty exciting, man.
So exciting.
I was really pumped for him. And
ground floor. We have exclusivity, right? He's not going to go do the athletic.
Excited.
Yeah.
Get the lawyers on it.
No, I didn't want to bombard him because I knew he'd be busy, but he said he loved it. Said it was an unbelievable experience. And
you know who? Do you know who? B? Do you know who Andy's lawyer is?
Ollie.
No, close.
Joey Martin Murphy.
What?
Joey became a lawyer just so that he could represent Andy in all of his contractual issues.
Hi, Grant.
So yeah, thank you. We're rounding up, but we got a minute for one more question. So pop it in there. Joel had asked a question I know I wanted to get to, and what the hell was it? Jesus Christ, I don't even. I'm looking out at a pool that I'm about ready to get into. Fredo and AKA Freddy asked how vital it is that the Three Amigos get the next appointment back. He's also asking where JP is. We have no idea where JP is. I might get to the bottom of this pool and find him for all I know. But he's scouting Nagoya Grampus for the next Arsenal manager of the future. Thank you to Rob Ford for joining up into the chat.
What up, Robbie?
Rob and I will be hitting Londres in March together. So if you're in London and you want to avoid us, start looking elsewhere in mid-March. Bulgarian Gunner stepping up big time with some Andy Love and whatever the opposite of that is. Mass Gunner, Cy Anvesh, who's drunk. Danny the GFP, thank you very much. Joel. Mass Gunner, by the way, points out against Nagelsmann, because you're such a Nagelsmann and Ten Hag guy, B, that he would do what McVay has done to the LA Rams. Now, remember when we were talking about what McVay had done for the LA Rams? Now it's not looking so good all of a sudden. So, does appointing one of those up-and-coming managers necessarily give you, long-lasting permanent safety?
I feel like that. I mean, do we really want to get into like an in-depth NFL discussion?
No.
Like to pin that on McVay, I think is a little bit silly, and I think a lot of people have been making a lot of kind of confounding connections between.
The Rams suck now, especially their defense, who no one should take in the first round.
Like number one overall pick.
But
man. Okay, so in thinking about like what's going on with the Rams, there's a lot of injury issues defensively. There's a lot of kind of like coaching uncertainty defensively. And then Jared Goff has always just been kind of terrible. And I think the big problem there was giving him the big contract, because that kind of locks them in moving forward. But to make a comparison between them and Arsenal, I think is a little silly, especially because like you could do the exact same thing with the Avs or the Nuggets, who are both kind of like the most well-constructed young in their both are absolutely killing it right now. And the Avs are doing so with the most ridiculous injury problems possible. So like if you want to make comparisons because they're under the KSD umbrella, that's there's some of it. The American sports,
not a great one.
30 seconds, but it's really hard to compare any of those leagues, especially with like the way that free agency works specifically to football globally, because it just functions so differently. And there's so much kind of like lure from like, look at what happened with the Clippers. You just sign whoever you want because you're in LA basically. So I don't know. I think the McVay comparison is interesting. But I also think like, I'm not like heavy on the Nagelsmann bandwagon. I just think he's an interesting name to consider and kind of represents a lot of what I would like to see us looking at in this managerial search, because as much as I would love to have Poch come on, or I guess like I would understand the idea of Allegri because they have like that experience, and Allegri is a winner and Poch is relatively young and exciting and has done really well in performing in the Premier League. This is like a time for us to make a step as a club, and to do that in a progressive way would be amazing. So
we're going to take a step, and it's going to be off the air. I'm going to take a step into this goddamn pool. A couple things coming up, like Andy mentioned. Cole, we're going to schedule that and do it. We are a week or two away from having a visit from Amy Lawrence, who's going to talk to us about her experiences at the Athletic, and also about her outstanding book, her collection of memories from my favorite topic, which is 1989. A book that I am in, so go out and buy it because I'm in it. I'm the centerpiece of that book, and those are the things that we have coming up. If we can be arsed to podcast about Arsenal in the next few weeks. So, with that being said, happy Thanksgiving to those of you who celebrate it.
You three boys, happy Thanksgiving, or you two boys? I'm looking at myself saying three.
Happy Turkey Day, y'all.
And all I have to say is, come on, you Gooners!
Oh, God. Do you know what every other pod wishes they have, but they don't?
Background pool.
Live beach whale footage.
And
And see ya.